Summary of How to Get Your Point Across in 30 Seconds or Less. By Milo O. Frank. Attention span. The average person's attention span is 30 seconds. If you try to focus your attention on, for instance, a chair, you may find that your mind will wander off within 30 seconds. If the object could do something interesting like move or talk, it might hold your attention for another 30 seconds. But, without motion or change, it won't. Most television commercials are 30 seconds long, because media research has shown that is the average viewer's attention span. Advertisers must get their point across within 30 seconds, or they will lose your attention. To make maximum use of this short amount of time, television and radio news have developed the sound bite. The average television news story is 1.5 minutes, 30 seconds to set up the story, 30 seconds to show the clip or play part of the interview, and 30 seconds to wrap up. The portion taken from the interview, the part that succinctly makes the point, becomes the sound bite. A rambling, unfocused message will not make it on the air. The same applies to you. If you cannot get your point across within 30 seconds, you will lose your listener's attention. Step 1. Objective. Know what you want to achieve with your message. What is the purpose of calling that business meeting, or starting that conversation? What point do you want to make? Some objectives may be: you want a raise. You want to increase the effectiveness of your department. You want to start your own business. You may waste a valuable opportunity if you give a mixed message or if you are not quite sure what your goal is. To get what you want, have a single, clear-cut objective. Ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish? Why do I want to send this letter? Why do I want to have this interview or conversation? Sometimes making your objective clear can be a bad approach. Think of a poker game. You may have to bluff your way to the win. But as long as your own personal goal is clear to you, you can decide if you meet it better by making it seem that your intentions are focused elsewhere. Step 2. Know who to target. Once you have a clear goal in mind, direct it to the right person, the person who can get results. Once you know who can get you what you want, find out about that person. Know as much as you can, including what that person wants from you in return. What is the one thing that will get a positive response? Put yourself in his shoes. Step 3. Find the right approach. Identify the best way to communicate your objective to another person. Form a thought or a sentence that will be the root of your idea, question, or goal. Ask yourself, what do I really want to say? What is the foundation of my plan? What is the best sentence to show what I want? How will this relate to the needs or interests of my listener? Choose only one approach. It must relate to your objective because the right approach will keep you focused on attaining it. For example, if your objective is to get a raise, your focused approach might be to show how valuable your work is to the company. Step 4. Find your hook. A hook is a sentence or element that grabs your attention. It is a common element of news stories, books, and magazines. It keeps you tuned in, compels you to turn the page, or makes you want to buy a product. In television, for example, you will see the dramatic highlights at the beginning of a show, the explosion, car chase, or emotional scene. These are hooks. To find the hook for your 30-second message, ask yourself, what is my message's most unique, interesting, or exciting aspect? What is its most humorous or dramatic element? Can I boil this down into one sentence? Once you have come up with a few candidates, ask, does this hook lead to my objective? Does it relate to my listener? Does it connect with my approach? Will it excite or interest my listener? Can it be the first sentence in my 30-second message? When you have chosen your hook, decide whether to frame it as a statement or a question. Notice the difference: all effective leaders share one important skill, or, what is the most important skill that all effective leaders share? The hook is meant to grab a listener's attention. Very often a question is the best way because the listener will want to answer it. There are several kinds of hooks, for example. Humorous: you can use humor as a hook, but be careful with jokes. What one person finds funny, another will find in poor taste, and your 30-second message will fall flat. Choose an anecdote or personal story your listeners will relate to. Make sure it fits your objective and builds up to your targeted point. Visual. Some of the best hooks are visual. One UCLA professor about to give a lecture made a great display of falling as he emerged on stage. Then he grinned and said, "Got your attention, didn't I?" You don't need to go that far, but it is worthwhile finding a visual hook of your own. Step 5. Develop your subject. A lawyer who is addressing a jury will get their attention with a hook and will end with a plea. Everything in between is the subject, which reinforces and proves his point. The subject contains some or all of the well-known formula: who, what, where, when, why and how. A 30-second message is the same. To develop your subject, know your objective, listener, and approach, and then ask. What am I talking about? Who is involved? Where is it? Why is it? How do I do it? Then, evaluate whether your answers strengthen and explain your goal. Do they apply to your listener? Do they connect with your approach? Step 6. Paint a picture. An effective 30-second message is more than a hook and a close. It must also paint a picture. Use imagery and be clear. Choose descriptive words that create a picture in your listener's thoughts. Employ plain, simple, understandable language. Illustrate your point with personal stories your listener can relate to easily. Try to create emotional appeal. If you reach your listener's heart, your 30-second message is more likely to be heard. Step 7. Close the message. A message is wasted without a definite request to close it. If you don't ask for it, you won't get it. Decide on your close in advance. Ask yourself, what do I want from my listener? The answer is the close of your message. You can close with either a demand for action or a demand for reaction. With a demand for action, you might close a business meeting by saying, "We all know we have to cut costs. Please write down 3 cost-cutting ideas we can discuss at the next meeting." If a demand for action is inappropriate, use an indirect approach or soft sell and demand a reaction. Instead of saying, "Buy these shoes," you might say, "Aren't these shoes beautiful? I've had my eye on them myself." Step 8. Create a good impression. Your 30-second message might be terrific, but if you deliver it in a mumbling monotone with your eyes downcast and your hands stuffed in your pockets, you will lose your listeners. People can size you up in 30 seconds or less. Their first impression will last a long time, so make sure it is good. How you deliver your message involves several factors: facial expression, eye contact, posture, gestures, voice, and physical appearance. Your facial expression is important. A warm, genuine smile will give your listener confidence in you. Don't make it phony. Instead, think of something that makes you happy. A blank facial expression is boring. Make eye contact. Staring off into space or down at your shoes will not encourage confidence. Maintaining eye contact is the best way to make a point and show you are sincere. Rigid posture indicates that you are anxious and uptight, slouching indicates indifference. Be aware of what your body language and gestures reveal. If you have a choice between sitting and standing, choose standing. You can move more easily to emphasize your points. Practice on video to see what you look like and correct any nervous tics. Your voice shows how you truly feel. If you give your message in a bored monotone, your listener will be bored. If you speak too quickly or in a shrill voice, your listener will be anxious or uncomfortable. A few pointers. Aim for a conversational voice, with variety, sincerity, and enthusiasm. Never memorize. What if you forget? Never read your notes. It makes your voice flat and unnatural. Use a tape recorder to learn if you are speaking clearly, with appropriate emphasis. To emphasize an important sentence, say the last few words softly. For example, if I want to emphasize what I'm saying, I must speak softly. This is a great way to get complete attention. Use the pause for emphasis. It gives you a moment to think and your listener time to absorb what you're saying. A pause for a moment or two during your 30-second message will add a hint of drama. How you look and what you wear can send a powerful signal. If you're trying to be someone you're not, people will notice and be uncomfortable. Unless you want negative attention, avoid extremes. However, you can wear something that shows your personality, such as a bright scarf or colorful shirt. Just make sure that it is appropriate for the occasion. Above all, be yourself. Preparing a speech. While you should never memorize your speech or read it off the paper, you can still prepare. Follow these steps. Outline what you will say, using all the elements of the 30-second message. Use the outline to make notes with keywords on 3x5 cards. Anything larger is difficult to handle and distracting to the audience. Your cards provide a map for you to follow so you can speak naturally. Rehearse your speech as many times as you feel necessary. Make sure you can read your notes. Never look at your notes when you start your speech. Use them only when needed. Maintain eye contact. Think of your audience as one person with whom you are having a pleasant conversation. This makes it easier to be yourself. Establish credibility. Describe your credentials through a personal anecdote. Stop before your audience wants you to.